At our last office hours, a colleague named Sharo had a really good question.
I'm Charo. I'm a suicide prevention team leader in Australia with Grand Pacific Health. I've noted in the chat in particular as well, I was kind of curious, and sorry that I had sent the question through beforehand, but just about how to communicate effectively with
Uh,
external agencies who aren't familiar with SafeSide without having to, I guess, rewrite some sort of safety formulation.
So here are some ideas that I have. First, if possible, structure your documentation and communication that you send out to other organizations according to the framework. It can follow, for example, your risk assessments can have the structure that the framework provides for those categories for gathering data. Risk status, risk state, foreseeable changes. So if you have some control over how you document, have it follow the framework, and then number two, send them the framework so that they can see the relationship between what you're documenting and this map. May generate their curiosity. Third, put descriptions into your documents under each heading. Rather than just writing risk status, you can actually pull right from the framework. Say risk status, parentheses, brackets, risk relative to others in a given setting or one being considered. If you use the descriptors that are in the framework together with your documentation, then other people know what you're referring to. I do this all the time. In fact, all of my templates have not only risk status and risk state, but what they mean so that somebody reading it who's not familiar with that work can understand it and maybe grow interested in it. Fourth, you can send them our paper on risk formulation. It's available open access, and we can give you a link on how to do that. One thing I do in my documents is I will sometimes cite that. I'll say risk formulation, and then cite, Pisani Pisani et al. 2016. It feels very weird to be citing your own work and your own documentation, but it's been very useful because it gives people the confidence that I'm speaking to them based on a model, and they can look at that, and that's publicly available. And finally, if you are in New South Wales, as Sharo is, invite your colleagues to an in-place workshop that you could host. In New South Wales, community-managed organizations that have MOUs, Memoranda of Understanding, with New South Wales Health have access to SafeSide training and the same membership that people in New South Wales Health have. So there's no better way to form a collaboration than to invite somebody to spend a day of learning and talking together, and then giving them the gift of access to all that the SafeSide membership includes. If they're not part of an organization that has access to the membership, take them out for coffee or talk about your work. It's actually very refreshing. I mean, we're often so with our heads in our work and doing this sometimes very challenging, very busy days. If someone were to say, hey, do you want to talk about how we manage, how we support people at risk for suicide together, most people would be thrilled, and maybe you make a friend along the way. So those are some tips for communicating with people in another organization who aren't familiar with the SafeSide framework. Structure your documentation according to the framework. If you have the ability to do that, send them the framework with a little message. Our team uses this framework to guide our practice and documentation. If you're curious about it, happy to meet. Third, put descriptors from the framework into your documentation rather than just saying risk formulation or risk status. Explain what it is in brackets. Fourth, you can send them our paper. And fifth, invite your colleagues to an in-place workshop. And if they're not able to do that, invite them for coffee or a beer and to talk about your work together. Hopefully those are some helpful ideas. Shara, I'm interested to see if you take up on any of these or other ideas for facilitating that communication.